Hi there, my name is Hailey Contine. I am currently teaching English 4 and English 4 College Prep, which is for our CCMR students at Prosper High School in Prosper, Texas. The meeting that you are about to observe is of my weekly English 4 CTM, which is a collaborative team meeting. That team is made up of myself, 3 English 4 teammates, and then you'll see some additional faces in there for today. Now that meeting is generally made up of that core group. So myself, my teammate Larry Avery, Michelle Furr, and Eric Congdon. In addition, like I said, today you will also see Carla Reyes, who is our ESL specialist on campus and then within the district. We also had Jessie Burris. She is my inclusion aide. So she works with our resource students of the English 4 level, as well as pushing into myself, and I believe just Coach Congdon's classes to support our special ed students with minutes. Carla Reyes often brings guests to our meeting as well, so you will see Miss Shawn attend as well. She is ESL at the district level alongside of Carla, but they often will come to meetings within the English department just to kind of get a temperature check on what's going on within departments around the campus and within the district. Now this meeting today is nothing out of the ordinary. Today we did not have data to assess, seeing as we are collaborating and preparing for our upcoming Q2, which will be beginning not this coming week, but the following on October 14th. So this meeting is going to be lots of, or at least hopefully, lots of collaboration, gathering some ideas for what we want this upcoming quarter to include and what we want that to look like. This next quarter, we will be entering, or rather leaving, an informational unit and jumping into an argumentative/rhetorical analysis unit. We will be using the novel The Things They Carried, which will be new for our team. We do have some teammates who have used it in the past, but this is going to be new for me as the English 4 team lead, as well as department head, as well as teacher on the team. So hopefully this meeting has lots of collaboration where we are ideally determining what our assessments are going to be, or at least when they will be. That way we can utilize backwards design and prepare our students for those final checkpoints. Now we know we will be working with a actual Vietnam veteran to help us with this unit, so that will likely be a fixture of this meeting as well. We also do have our instructional coach, Rosalind, in attendance at this meeting that you will see, and she often is there as a support system. She's there to ask us questions that really get us thinking. Now, I am the team lead of this team, and this team is infamously difficult just because we are senior teachers. This is my first year on the team. In years past, I've been an English 2 team lead for many years, actually, and that team always felt much more involved. And sometimes I run into a position with my English 4 team where I feel as though I am the only one contributing ideas. And I find sometimes that leadership point is a little bit sticking. So as far as what I hope my observer will give me some insight into and maybe some feedback on is what I can be doing better to facilitate discussion rather than filling empty space with my own thoughts, my own ideas, my own questions. I also often find that our instructional coach, Rosalind, directs her questions to me rather than my whole team, and that sometimes can get a little uncomfortable. So I'm hoping once again that my observer will be able to give me some feedback on what I, as the team lead, can be doing or saying to protect my teammates, make sure that they're all involved, engaged in conversation, and also how to maybe keep my team a little bit more on track with those discussion points. I will also be attaching our agenda, our meeting minutes, and our speaking points, links, and things of that nature. Any additional feedback on how those could be more accessible, maybe how those could be easier for a teammate to use and follow, as well as a team lead, would be greatly appreciated as well. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoy our English 4 team lead meeting. I'm not team lead, team meeting, CTM. Yes, and thank you so much for any insight, feedback, and conversation we can have to follow. I appreciate it. Take care.
Alrighty guys, well we're gonna go ahead and get started, just a minute behind. Happy Wednesday. Thank you guys first of all for being flexible and moving our meeting back. to today. I was not really feeling the best on Monday, so I did just kind of like skedaddle when I could. Hopefully that also gave us a little bit more time to just kind of be ready to go for today, ready for some quarter two talk, which I'm really excited about. Now our agenda, we'll start with just like our good things as normal, check in on some research, and then I'd love to just spend some time kind of getting some quarter two things squared away for today, mostly in the eyes of pre-assessment and all things. But first, if we could do some good things, some fun things happening outside school, good things happening in the classes, anything positive to report.
You better just tell us who to go first.
Ms. Wilcox, you want to go first?
I'll just say that the kids have been just so good and respectful and just well-mannered and well-behaved this year that it's just been really kind of a joy to be in the halls and be in the cafeteria and all the things.
I love that. Michelle, anything good to report?
Gotta knock on wood sometimes. There we go. I used the duck thing that you guys told me to do.
Yeah.
And they still are quiet. But I made them speak today to each other, and they did. And the first time they let me do it to choose who went first, and then after that, it was just me having fun watching them. Like whenever they were done, I was like, okay, you're next.
Yeah.
I didn't do it for the other group. I just kept with this one who was at least humoring me. And
Yeah.
finally, when I heard them say, she's enjoying this too much, I was like, okay, I guess I'll quit. But
That's
they're
when you
so
went from the
quiet.
ducks to like the horse racing.
Well, yeah, I changed it to Santa Clauses.
Or you could do the name draw.
Leprechauns.
Yeah,
That one was fun.
so fun.
I thought I might have to pay for that one.
No, because I tried it out and like you can put up to 100 names in that one.
Oh. Well, that's the problem. There's 11 kids in this class. And so and I guess they're not friends.
Or do jetpacks or
It's like pulling teeth.
Well, that's fun that you tried it out.
Yes, I was proud of myself anyway.
I like it.
in Connor's classes they keep asking for it.
Oh yeah, they won't stop.
8th period.
That's
That's like
hilarious.
races. He's like, good thing I have it up.
I have to invest in the premium account though, because I'm tired of having to retype the answers.
Yes.
honestly.
I accidentally X'd out. Luckily, it was only 11, like I said.
Yeah. Is that like the perk of if you pay for it, you get to keep their like classes
Yeah,
in
you
there or
can
something?
save their names. And then I think on all the ones where it has like 6 name limits, you can have.
You can have
more
up to,
names.
like, the premium one is like, you can have up to 100 names and all those other ones. Like the dinosaur race or the monster race that I like. I like monster race.
Did the Halloween one today. About 31 more days of that. So.
Yeah. Nice. Coach, anything that sounds like good things happening over there? Anything else positive to report?
No, everything's good.
Yeah.
I think, like Lenny said, the kids are awesome. They're really good kids here. So
Thought.
all good.
Got Mr. Avery, anything good going on?
Oh, I'm good.
Yeah.
Just
Sorry
all
about
around.
the Saints. Sorry about at least Bama.
Alabama though,
Yeah.
let's go.
But
There
we'll
was-
lose to Vanderbilt this week, so.
100%.
I'm ready for the Mizzou Bama game. That'll be. We'll have to talk that week, or maybe we won't.
I think y'all should watch it together.
Mizzou's doing good this year.
Yeah, the longest home winning streak in the SEC.
Nice.
So there's that. Roz, anything positive to report?
Life is good. It's Wednesday.
Yeah.
We're
We're halfway.
And it's October.
It's officially Halloween, is what that means.
Mhm.
Jesse, how about you?
Good things.
Good things, just all the good things.
Sure. I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, all the good things, all the bad things. Resource, they started their project and like they're actually doing pretty well on it. So.
That's awesome. I love that. Carla, anything good to report?
I loved meeting your dad at the game. He got to sit with me at the game and got to experience Texas football and cowbells and mums. It was fun. He's a really great, I can see why you like him so much. He's really good.
I do like him. I think I'll keep him.
I think I'll keep him.
He's good guy, good dude. Thank you. That was really sweet of you guys as well, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Miss Shawn, would you like to introduce yourself to the rest of our team?
Sure, I'm Shawn Strawn, I'm the ESL facilitator in the district, and I'm just here because my favorite thing and my good thing is that I get to see teachers come together to collaborate to help students. So, that's my good thing.
We're so happy to have you. When I saw you on our agenda, I was like, oh, This is gonna be really great.
She goes, who is that? I was like,
Yeah.
hover over the name, it'll tell you what she does.
My good thing is that my dad was in town this last weekend. Obviously met the Reyes family and the Crimpins and got to watch football. And Carter and I went to a concert. When we came back, my dad had done all of the home improvement things that needed to be done in our apartment. He like painted our bookshelf and like fixed our janky cabinet and did all the light. Like he was just busy while we were gone, and it was so nice. Makes me wonder why I live so far away from my dad, who's just gonna always like do all the handy stuff. I
Oh
guess.
gosh,
But I don't know.
Harry's now at your apartment fixing something.
Seriously, don't let her hear
Just changing
that.
out the faucet.
Yeah, yeah, don't let her hear that we needed things done, because she will just move in. Alrighty guys, well I want to touch base really quickly on just some, I almost want to call it postmortem, but we're not quite finished with quarter one research related things just yet. But since we have kind of a dense quarter two to get going on and get thinking on, I do want to just take a moment to reflect on research and how the back half of quarter one has been going. Obviously we don't have our final products to collaborate on or calibrate, I'm sorry, and take a look at like final scores on those just yet. But just general likes, dislikes, pacing, vibe, for lack of a better word, of this research unit. So Michelle, Coach, Mr. Avery, Jesse, any thoughts, things that we might want to change, things that we liked about this unit?
So like, the other classes have been doing okay. Third period really struggled.
Okay.
Like, we talked about it, like they almost needed a whole separate, I don't know, like they could, like today he went through and was like showing them these are the things you're working on, and then afterward we still had to go around and half the class was like, what are we doing? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, it.
Yeah, I think trying to do both research projects with them, you know, the kind of fun one with the music, and then this one, like initially they were like confusing them together, which I don't know how that happened,
Gotcha.
but they did, you know?
Yeah.
Well, we did have somebody in first
I had
period
one,
that
yeah.
literally thought the research project, so he did his whole slideshow on his artists.
Right.
And I had to be like that, well, he had like 3 different
Yeah.
research projects going on,
Right.
so.
And so we not punted, but we delayed the album study one for that
Yeah.
class, and I think that's helped. There's still some kids that we're bringing along, but
Yeah.
Like, and I like the Gemini part, but I feel like it was a little disjointed. Like,
Okay.
I think for planning for next year, maybe plan better in getting it, I don't know, placed.
Okay. Where?
I don't know,
Okay.
I just like, specifically third period.
So
right.
on
I
that
think
one,
what part of the issue was for that, at least for that class, was like, so the day before they're drafting their question,
Mhm.
and then the next day I'm like, okay, now put your 3 sources here and come up with a thesis from those 3 sources. I think before worrying about getting a thesis, just hey, let's just take notes on our sources, like basically do like a research day essentially.
Yeah.
Was it like you combine that with the thesis, which I don't know if anyone else did that way. That might have just been a me mess out of thing, but that's something I would do differently if I was to run this whole thing back.
I completely agree. That's when I was gonna ask, like, where would you have done it? That was my thinking too. Is it was a quick turnaround from you just came up with this thought, this like inquiry. Now all of a sudden it's like, now turn this into something that is so academic sounding. And I loved the Gemini assignment. Like I thought that was a cool way to incorporate that. But yeah, I definitely think like a solid day of like, here's what I got from this source.
Yeah.
Right.
And maybe even after their annotated bib, or maybe not the evaluation portion, but like, here's a summary of all my sources. Here's what I got.
Even,
That's a good
even if you
idea,
just, and
yeah.
you can come back and do the evaluation
Smart.
and the reflection piece later, like,
Yeah.
find the 3 articles and like summarize it.
Right.
It might help them, and I
I
don't
did
know
do
if it's
that.
just third period,
No.
but like, cause our 8th period doesn't have that issue.
Yeah, 2nd and 8th are good.
7th
Most of
is
my
fine,
7th
yeah.
is good.
The 3rd, like, as a whole,
Uh-huh.
like, the class is like, doesn't seem to understand what's going on.
Awesome.
are there any opportunity, alright, so when we think about,
But I will, let me
Oh, go ahead,
clear
go
that with that class is probably 60 to 70% sped.
It's probably higher, honestly. Than
Friends that
14 out of, or 13 out of 15 or so have accommodations of some kind.
Right.
So,
So is
Not
there a
the
way to
best.
like chunk it differently or something for that specific group?
There's gotta be.
Yeah,
you know?
definitely.
so it's based, I think just we're planning moving forward, like, I think once we get out of the informational piece,
Mhm.
it's gonna be different, but just for this unit, like planning for next year.
Right.
I think chunking it differently, like with the research, the Gemini thesis, and like, I like the idea of doing some like actual research first, like reading through the articles, not just find it and crowd test it.
Yeah,
Right.
So,
definitely. Now
Was-
hearing, oh sorry.
Okay, was this, how much of it was guided? Was this mostly students working independently? Were there a lot of mini lessons when we looked at breaking
It
down
was
research
typically
skills?
mini lesson at the beginning,
Mhm.
and then here you
Then
go do it.
application?
You know? Yeah.
And most of the other classes, like 8th period,
Right.
go, run with it.
Or 7
7th period,
o'clock.
go with it.
Mhm.
First, even fairly okay, but third period was like, they fell off the horse,
Yeah.
like from day one, so.
Well, you can always, if you know that about your third period group, you know, you guys can brainstorm differently how to do it just for that one class.
And that's
Not
what we
like
started-
reduce the amount or reduce the assignment, but
Right.
just change the way that you're presenting it, knowing that
Chunking
they don't
it,
handle it the
Which
same way.
we were having to like on the fly, like
Mhm.
adapt things
Yeah.
because of them, and like that's like
I
with
wouldn't
them.
change it for everybody just because of this one
Right.
specific
Right,
class.
no, like his
Right.
eighth
Yeah,
period
that's
had
not
totally,
what
they still
anyone
did the
suggested.
album study, but like third period, we just took the album study out.
Right, and then we took another day to try to get all caught up on
Yeah.
everything, which that was helpful, you know.
So,
But there was nothing, like, this didn't happen at all with the previous summative we had
Yeah.
done, you know, so this is really kind of like the first, okay, maybe this needs to look different than my second period, you know what I mean?
I think that's also good. Like we always talk about at the beginning of a unit, like what do we anticipate that they'll struggle with? And I feel like this just helps us with that for next year automatically of like, we know that with research, there are so many steps and it is, no matter how many minis we do at the beginning of a lesson or the beginning of a class period, it is so independent, that it's good to know, like we should have those chunked pieces ready to go before we get to where they are really needing it. I know for me, something that I used to do that I didn't do because I'm stuck in this, like I used to teach sophomores and now I teach seniors and I'm trying to not baby my seniors the way I babied my sophomores. But I've always done a research project, like the same thing with my own topic alongside them. That way every day they have that, like I would do it on the board. I'm looking at my sources, I'm pulling this quote. And I think last year with my seniors, I got away with not having to do that. I think this year that would have been helpful,
well,
so.
I think the last thing is today we talked about like, we might for third period alone, just start having like a checklist for the day. Like,
So from a teaching and learning perspective,
Yes, ma'am.
is Q1 the optimal place for research?
Yeah.
How are we going to revisit it later on in the year? Are we going to revisit it later in the year?
Q2 already, just with context with our novel. Lots of, I mean, they're gonna need lots for the things they carried. And then I think any other literary unit where you have to build the background knowledge, like there's space to do, like remember when we did this? Yeah, WebQuest, or just even like everyone has a question for the day, like this group's question for today is this, like go about research, find your sources, all things. You know, I think that would be an easy one to kind of pop back to. And I think they need it too. Like I think they will need to practice that more. Okay. Hearing you guys say that they got a little stuck with the album stuff, which also I'm so sorry if that felt like that was something that everyone had to do. I just do that because
Oh, not at all, I was
like
like fired up to do it, no, I was lost with it. So,
I think
not
the
at all.
kids are excited about it too, but like for me, in resource, it's not something we can feasibly just do in one quarter, so we're doing it as like a capstone.
which I love that
Over the
idea. In hindsight, I almost like that being a research, like that being their research if we, like if a teacher or class was really into it, because the context for the band, the context for the time period, like the literary connection, I think that could be a cool way to mix literary analysis and research in a way that isn't so stark, where they're having to entirely switch gears. That could be cool.
Does this sound similar to what English 3 was just talking about? What do you mean? Wasn't English 3 just talking about doing an album cover too?
Oh, they are doing one for
They
us.
do not a cover, this is.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're going through an
Analyzing.
album of their choosing, and then we're doing a model album. And each day we look at 2 songs together
Okay.
and look for like a common thread, a connection.
Okay,
And we did a lot of
Cause
context.
I know that's frustrating when, like, you guys have a group come up and be like, oh, we did this last year.
Mhm.
So I was just making sure it wasn't the same thing.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah,
Okay, good.
they're actually doing what English 2 used to do with the album cover, like the
Mm.
illustration side of it, which is, it's a cool project. Cool performance task. Okay, so some changes definitely that we wanna make. Any thoughts on just the general topic that we chose as well for our research? With that being like something ahead for our students. Did you like that? Is that something we wanna change, maybe make it an option? Like what were we thinking about the topic of our research?
I like that they got to pick. I thought there was more buy-in with that.
Yeah.
Like, I know like for EVs, this has been really, really hard. Because there's so many documents, so it's chunked well, but it's chunked by documents. And that has been very, very hard. So I've already talked to Congdon about it, about things that we can do like moving forward and, so we can just be better prepared, but it was almost so many.
Well, I almost wonder,
Pieces.
remember English 3 was like, years ago, we were on the team and it was like, we did that take a stand project, but they had the entire thing on one, it's like a 7 to 10 page document, but like, it was broken into steps. If it was like on one document and it's just like, you work on this step.
Yeah, I don't think I taught English 3 then, I think that was a different team, but I know what you're talking about, yeah. But anyway, so that would just be my feedback, like thinking for next year,
Yeah.
is almost like one-stop shopping, so this has been really hard.
Carla, can I ask, so in like a perfect world where we were meeting, like no confusion, none of that, and you say one-stop shop, is that like a document that has everything linked? Is that a document that is every question they could need to answer is on that one thing?
Yeah, yes,
Okay,
yes.
like
but
a running.
Because we have one EB who just got here, so she's a true newcomer, and so then she finds her source, and then she pulled it up today, and it's 9 pages, so she was just like,
Fair.
done, you know, and
Okay.
so it's just finding, so I wish like, but since they get to choose their own topic, it's not like I can okay, here are some good sources for you to pick from. And so those are things thinking for next year, because I have 3 different newcomers on 3 different levels. And it's just been, and I get to only go once a week with them to class, and so then I pull them during equal time. So anyways, Congdon and I talked earlier today about how we can better accommodate those situations and stuff.
Okay.
And so a lot of it is one-stop shopping, basically. So, but I felt so bad for the sweet little girl.
Well, darn, I feel horrible if that was
No,
hard, it is a lot of
we
stuff.
were able to modify in the moment and
Okay.
to accommodate in the moment, but, for me to be more proactive and not reactive would be more helpful for them. So that part's on
Oh, well, no,
me.
you were a
That's
little.
not like you.
Well,
There's things I
you know,
can do
well,
too, you know what I mean?
just as a
Like,
tip,
Just hindsight, yeah.
Yeah, hindsight, for sure.
In the
This is-
past, Carla, if you think this
Yeah.
would be helpful, in the past for SPED students, I've done their entire project on a slide deck, and each day, like I have like a table of contents where it's like the green slides are today, and then like the pink slides are today, and like we kind of move forward that way, and then everything is backlogged. Is that helpful, or is that just
Checklist, this is just, research
Okay.
is hard for, I think, all kids, not
Yes.
just EVs, and
Very
so
much so.
just things to think out. And so we've got them in a good place right now, with their questions and like they don't know what a thesis is, and so just backing up to that level is where we're kind of at. So finding a good source, and just doing that brainstorming part, so.
Okay, cool, that's helpful to know. I hate when we get to the end and it's like, shoot, had I only like thought of that switch, you know, to make it easier for someone. Okay, last round, or I guess last call for summative 2 things we definitely would want to keep, things we would definitely want to change. Final thoughts.
I did not do the album thing, so I think tying it to something, like you said, making it mix, but then that negates letting them choose. Well, they choose, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's not college research related if they
Right.
do that.
So that could always be like, if we felt up to it, like your
Making it
options
totally
of-
open.
Yeah, yeah, something to consider.
But I do feel like something needs to be tied to it to make it. I mean, I realize college is, but I felt like there was more my kids could do, but that's probably because they're small and I felt like I was stalling out.
I feel like that too, like with this long week of time to just get it done, I feel like, all right, let's just put the bow on this and move on. I do think research with the things they carried would be really cool. So that might be something to consider next year, like maybe even starting the things they carried like mid-quarter one, and having research or whatever novel. Every novel is going to require context and that research point, but having something that they're looking into with, like you said, like a tie, I think could be interesting. So that might be something to consider.
Going into the things they carry quarter two, is there an opportunity to do just a mini research? Like, what is
100%,
the one thing that you saw from this last research that you really want them to tighten up?
Are you asking me that right now, or is that, oh boy,
And you can sit up and think about
I'll
it.
think about it.
But
yeah.
because you're saying that research is going to carry through, it's gonna be a through line throughout the year. What is something, one aspect of, what do you want them to really understand about research? What do you want them to really do? What's the enduring understanding? What do you want them to take out of their senior year? How can that be a part of the things they carry? Especially because that's such a high interest novel.
Totally, definitely. Last question, I guess, on the research situation. Did you guys also have students who were getting to their final product and were like, what do I, like, I feel like they struggled, maybe this is a slight answer to your question, I feel like they struggled with, I have my question, and my CCMAR kids stopped at questions, so like that's my mindset right now. They have their question, they found their sources, granted they don't really read their sources, they just find them, and then they get to the final and they're like, well, what do I put in the final? And I'm sitting here like, the stuff from your, like,
Right.
where did we
We had
where
one
did
that
I
said,
lose you?
there's no facts in there. We were like, everything you read in there could be a fact.
Yeah, so maybe that's like, maybe just modeling, like when I do research, even down to like, I wanna know, I keep telling my kids, like, I was buying Birkenstocks and I had to look up the size conversion. Like, I technically did look at two sources. Nordstrom told me this and Amazon told me this, and now I came up with my answer and I was able to do something with it. Like, I feel like maybe that process just over and over would be.
Well, going back to y'all's commentary lesson, like like using those things that y'all talked about with the color coding that y'all did would be helpful.
Yeah.
In your exemplars, like having like here's my source, here's what I found to use. I think going back to modeling, that would be good.
Yeah, the whole
pulling the previous
first
lesson.
unit,
Yeah, and just,
it didn't transfer,
they were,
you know.
these sweet babies.
Are you having them cite the source other than the annotated bit, like in You Are Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which
In
I
the
want to.
project, I mean.
Okay, well, with the time that we have left, about 15 minutes, I do just want to check in on some quarter two things. Now I am pretty gung-ho about this unit, so I've just been trying to come up with as many things as I can, just for us to have ready to go, and then a couple things that obviously like I want us all to come together and collab on. One thing that I want to note really fast is I've been trying, this is my the things they carry folder, or if you go into here, something I'm trying to, Carla's really old, so. Something I'm trying to have just so that we all have things ready to go and available, but not necessarily, like sometimes using someone else's assignment is difficult because it's not the way that you teach, it's not what you typically make. I've been trying to write out, kind of like script out for a teacher, all of the like activity ideas that I'm thinking of doing personally. And you'll see these just kind of like pop up throughout my drive. These are always obviously like fair game, please use them, please lose them, but there isn't always like a student product per se along with these. A lot of times it's just like my thoughts of like, I want them to do this. So I have those just kind of like scattered throughout my drive. Again, just because sometimes teaching assignment or a product that someone else made is hard if that's like not what you would typically do. So I'm trying to have as much in there as possible just because a novel study is dense, it's a lot. Now I wanted to start with our PLC questions, or at least some of them that we can anticipate for now, just to give us kind of a why for the things they carried, a why for argument and rhetoric. I think that will help us get buy-in from our kids, be able to say like, you need to know this because of this. And we're reading this book that is sensitive and sometimes gory and different for this reason. So our first PLC question every quarter is, well, what do we want them to know? And we know with our TEKs that they need to be able to critique and evaluate the way.
Would it be helpful for everybody to be looking at the UFD right now?
That could be helpful if
totally
everyone wants
agree.
to have the UFD. I have it linked on our calendar too. Thanks, Ross. Can you get an idea of what my kids go through when I'm like, and then this and this and this, and then they're like, what are we even doing?
There it is.
Yeah. So we know that we're obviously going into argument and rhetoric, and we know that our final two like deliverables need to be those composition pieces of a rhetorical analysis and an argumentative text. Now we started talking about some summative ideas last CTM, and we still have some ideas on that list just to kind of take a peek at. But in a general sense, like we know the direction for this unit because we've been in these two TEKs, 10C and 10F, hundreds of times. Our kids have seen them before. But we do have this 7E 1 through 3 situation going on, which this is still different for me. So I'm gonna rely on some help from those of us who have taught English 4 before, or at least more than I have. I'm coming from a background with this TEK of analyze for an arguable thesis, analyze for the audience and the reader, and now we're switching into this critique and evaluate piece again. And that is where, like, personally from a unit design standpoint, I'm stuck a little bit on how we want to go about that and how we want to ensure that we have pre-assessment, we have extension opportunity, we have intervention pieces for that specific portion. Now, I know that's not necessarily like a question to answer in this moment, but something that I just want us to be thinking of, because that, like, personally, like I said, is kind of where I'm stuck. I can create rhetorical analysis and argumentative opportunities all day, but that critique and evaluate piece is where I'm a little.
So what would that look like? Like, you know, critique, that's a question you're probably gonna answer. So what would it look like to critique and evaluate those things versus analyze for them?
Thank you for asking that question. I am going to ask you, Hailey, since we're spending time in the novel, is there an opportunity for us to teach argument through the novel? If you go to your agenda, your possible summatives. If you go to that first one, that's something that I added, a TTTC argument tracker. So this is where critique and evaluate comes in, but it's also application. So
Specifically for this book.
yes.
Do you just like make that right here, right now?
No, ma'am. But at the office today. So
yeah, major snaps.
To get the most bang for our buck, because really this is a robust, rich content. But when we look at our transfer goals, what we want students to do the entire time is think through the lens of argument. And so this is broken down by chapter, it's broken down by skill, and then these are all of the ways that these arguments can be developed. And so what it has is an essential question or an argument prompt for each chapter. I'm not saying you have to do all of it. This could be part of a process grade. This could also be how they're setting up for, because everything that you have in your summatives, it's argument based. And so to make sure that we are looking at, are they really getting it? So however you break your chapters down, we're giving them ample practice to evaluate a plan. Critique and evaluate simply means, is it strong? Where's improvement need to happen? Look at their evidence. So
That's
these are kind of like
because you're gonna be
building
talking about the
mini
chapters anyway.
Oh yeah,
And
I
this
actually
gives you a lens to talk about.
I was literally like right before CTM making a annotation guide, and I was gonna have. I usually give them like a bookmark with like, hey, don't forget these are the things that you need to be looking for while we're reading today. But this is like almost exactly what I was trying to. I did not conceptualize this masterpiece, but this is exactly what I was hoping that we could find design. So thank you. That's so helpful.
If you all want to look at that and just think, do you think this will be supportive of helping them to understand the content,
Yeah,
but also develop their argumentative skills.
this is so helpful. So this actually leads to our summative kind of question a little bit of, coming up with those majors. Could we, and this is not just at URAS, but just in general, could we, if we did something like this with our classes, could this ultimately become like, now go back to one of your chapters and that's your argumentative prompt and you've already prepared it and you have all these options and all the things?
That'd be a team choice, but
Yeah. I kind of love that.
But also, is this asking them to look at the author's argument?
The author is also the narrator.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, is it asking
For their opinion or for the perspective of the author, is that what you're
to
asking?
evaluate the author's message? To,
so if you look at the way these are broken down, they're almost all broken down along evaluating what the author's doing.
Right.
Purpose
Yeah, with these
and
prompts
path.
here.
Yeah.
so yes,
But
is
so-
the
Yeah,
answer.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because like you're saying, Roz, like these are all chapter specific. That's still craft. That's still style. No, I think that's really cool.
So just to build on what Lindy was asking, analyze is simply asking students to break down the parts. And that's what they've been doing, identifying this is a thesis, this is a claim, this is evidence. So when we get to critiquing and evaluating, that's them offering their own response or reaction and highlighting like both strengths and weaknesses, and then focusing on the effectiveness and the impact.
Yeah.
So when you, all of these prompts for, and you're not like, this is a lot.
Yeah,
This
this is
is a
great
lot.
though.
And you could break this down however you want to, but essentially what we're doing is asking them to critique and evaluate what the author did, and then to add their own response to it.
Yeah. I love this. I think that's super helpful. I love anything that starts at the beginning and we can take all the way to the end, like a routine, a habit or a cycle that they'll get into. Team thoughts on Roz's amazing thing, or just argument in general with our text, or is that something that we would be okay with, like rooting our two summatives in our novel? I guess that's like a way backward question.
So then this in terms of how he's doing it, and then pick one and do it.
I think so. I think that would be cool. Do you guys have a preference? So we have our two composition pieces, the rhetorical analysis and the argumentative. I generally go rhetorical analysis pre-argumentative, just so that they can see, like, here's how other people have been persuasive in the past, here are rhetorical devices and strategies, here's how to identify and avoid logical fallacy in our argument. And Roz, you're welcome to answer on this one too. Do we have a preferred order? Do we want to do argument first and then take a look at rhetoric like towards the end, or do we want to flip that? I think simultaneously is a lot. I think like generally one might lead to another, but do we have a preference there?
I mean,
Students will struggle the most.
Writing rhetorical analysis,
Yeah,
100%.
that's general. I mean, because they know.
Which is what we're saying that they're doing though, if I'm understanding y'all correctly. Like,
Well,
answering
they're
that.
analyzing it, but they're not writing a rhetorical analysis yet.
well, yeah, but that's saying argue whether. So technically,
That's argumentative.
Yeah.
Not rhetorical analysis writing.
but she just said it was, like, analyzing author's craft. So that's where I'm getting
Well, no,
crisscrossed.
this is a step beyond analyzing. This is, so analyzing
Well,
is,
evaluating.
yeah, yeah,
I meant the word evaluating.
yeah. So,
So she's saying it is evaluating,
mhm.
which is doing that, right? Like saying, this is what they were arguing and this is how they did. I guess it's not saying how well they did it, but.
Yeah, so critiquing is just what worked, what didn't. That's where your analysis, that step beyond analysis is.
Right.
And that's the devices. Did this work? What was its effectiveness? That's the build on this. So this is just, are they able to come up with a claim, come up with evidence, support all of that? When you get later into the quarter, I think you're gonna have to front load with a lot of examples though.
Oh, yeah.
And examples in different modes. So commercials, cartoons, anything like that. I would ask you before, what's your essential question?
For like our UFD one or our?
For your whole unit, what is your essential question? What ultimately do you want the kids to be able to do? And why? We know what the UFD says, but and this is where I think we might have to think about backward planning.
Oh, yeah.
What are we leading up to?
I think with those two, and team, I'm gonna need you to help me here in a second. With those two teaks in mind, like we know that they need to be able to like decide whether or not someone was effective in their argument or not. Like my goal on a personal level would be, can they look at something and say, yes, this is persuasive and here's why, or no, and here's how they could have made it better. I think that carries into argument, because if you have that analysis point, then you're able to use your opinion against another, if that makes sense. Yes. Team, what do we think as far as that? Like, what ultimately Q1, what do we want them to know? What do we want them to be able to do? Question other board meals questions.
Look at somebody's argument, right? And then write their own. Like, understand the parts of someone else's argument and its effectiveness, I guess. And then imitate that in their own writing somehow.
So your UFD, one of the things says, like, what do you want them to do? And it says, I can develop a focused, coherent, rhetorical analysis. But in that, it says, anytime students are preparing to compose a rhetorical analysis essay, they need several opportunities to analyze rhetoric. So therefore, you need to analyze the rhetoric first before you can have them compose their rhetorical analysis. So that would be the order that I would.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. And rhetorical analysis also, I think, even though that's what they struggle with the most, I think that initial, like, let's look at this. I've been working on an assignment today with propaganda posters from North and South Vietnam and then the US about the war. And I think being able to look at that and just like the analysis piece of like what was actually being said here, what are they trying to get us to say, or trying to get us to think, feel, do, know, etc. Then lends itself to the argument. Then someone can say, well, I agree with what this poster is trying to get us to do, while other people think this. So I'm here for that order as well. And Michelle, I agree with you. Like, I think it's about, can they end this unit by, or able to create a sound argument on their own after being able to put together, like, I liked this from here, I didn't like this from here, I thought this person did this better, and kind of blend it all together and synthesize.
How are you thinking that you would introduce argument? Are you planning to start reading right at the beginning of the quarter? Do you need to think about front-loading the argumentative unit before you get into the novel? What are you thinking?
Are you asking me personally?
Wide open. Anyway.
I think it'd be good to show them an argument and remind them what the different elements of an argument are. You know, this is counter argument, this is, you know, whatever the rest of them are. Okay, make sure that we're all on the same page with that. I think that definitely would be worthwhile to do before jumping into the novel.
Yeah.
Well, because Vietnam was super controversial, so you need to build that background too. And the kids, I mean, they're seniors, so they've had U.S. history, but like your EVs, they don't study the Vietnam War because it didn't have anything to do with their country, so they know zero things.
Right.
But you could build in your argumentative things by researching, building that back in about the controversies of the Vietnam War. Should we join or should we not? And kind of open it up with that.
That's I like that question that you just said of should we join or should we not? Because that's such a cool argumentative piece, and it would take so much. They would need so many pieces of information to actually come up with an answer to that. Right now my plan is,
Could that be your pre-assessment? I think it's difficult to try to figure out what we need to teach until we figure out what they know.
Right.
They're not necessarily coming in blank slate. And so, kind of like what Carla said, if you do like a mini research, and then it looks like you have them on the pre-assessment, write an argument. I'm not going to give you a whole lot of.
Did you look at this? Is that okay? So I linked on here what we did last year for pre-assessment, and then one that I was thinking of for this year that I think just to get them writing might be maybe better than what we've done, or a combination of the two. So this is what I came up with for this year. This is absolutely not something that we have to do as a team. I do think we need to do one pre-assessment as a team, but it doesn't have to be this. But I was gonna have them take a look at something, a piece of propaganda, a commercial. There's one that's really interesting that's like promoting, or it's from Nixon's presidency, and it was promoting going into the war, and why people should enlist and all the things. And I just had like, what are they, or who are they trying to persuade? What do they want the audience to do? How do they attempt to persuade their audience? And then how strong of an argument do you think they made? And I think that could be helpful. In the past, what we also did was, I mean, it's pretty basic, but we did a Google form of, bless you, that was essentially like, what is rhetoric? And then towards the bottom, it turns into more of like, what logical fallacy are you seeing here? One second, let me get to ethos, pathos, logos. What are some of our devices? Our logical fallacies and things of that nature, like from these little excerpts. And then at the end, they had an excerpt and they had to identify the logical fallacy and their appeals and all the things.
Before they knew anything?
Yeah, I did.
Before any lesson?
I did this on day 1 last year.
I almost wonder if as a pre-assessment, that would be easier for us to pull data from because it's multiple choice. You know, as opposed to the other one, we've got to sift through the writing and see what, like, identify what they
That's true.
using us.
This is pre-assessing rhetorical analysis, correct? What are you already assuming that they know about argument? Where's your touch point?
So
or just argument?
So last year we had it very clearly separated. We're going to do rhetoric first, summative, argument second, summative. So last year then we had a pre-assessment midway through the year of counter-argument, rebuttal, types of evidence, structure of an argument, all that. So it was essentially copy-paste, but with our argumentative elements instead. But it was right in the middle. So I think like blending them would probably make sense without it being a whole test that they have to take. Again, I think that depends on if we as a team want to keep them isolated or if we want to intertwine them together, argument and rhetoric.
I know for a couple of my classes, it would be easier, I think, to isolate them as opposed to trying to blend it.
Yeah.
You know, other two classes would probably be fine, but just.
Okay.
Do you think rhetorical analysis is a build from argument?
Not.
Or do you think argument is a build from rhetorical analysis?
I think argument is a build from rhetorical analysis. Yeah. Because even looking at our TEKs with these, I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe that's just because that's the way I've always taught it, I guess. Roz, is there a right answer to that? Or did we get it wrong?
No. I want to know from your experience, what are you assuming that the kids already know about argument? Do they know how to identify and develop a claim? Do they know how to identify and develop evidence? Do they know how to identify and develop counter arguments? Do they know how to identify and develop rebuttals? And then once they do that, is rhetorical analysis a nuance, straw man, logical fallacies, different things like that? Carl, I'm gonna pull you into this because you
gosh, I can't.
keep in mind with English 4, like, where's the concrete
Yeah.
to the abstract?
I mean, they've learned since freshman year the ethos, pathos, and all of that. So I really like the idea of a quick multiple choice so that you're not having to sift through writing and now a week later you're just not getting feedback.
Right.
I also really think, like, when I come from an EB standpoint, knowing like what these things are, is going to be really important if they're going to then have to use those things to make a strong argument.
Right.
Right? So that's why I think you have to start at that level first. But I know they talk about these things starting like in middle school. So so, but do they retain it? That's always the question.
Is there an opportunity to activate prior knowledge? Are they really low stakes? This or that, you know. Seniors should have lunch off campus, or seniors should have a 4-day school week, something controversial. They go to the side of the room, they have their conversations. Each side of the room, you have to come up with your claim, your evidence, your counter rebuttal. At least you're activating that prior knowledge so that when you're listening, so they at least know argument.
Yeah.
And then you can wade into, now how do you strengthen that argument? How does that argument become, because that's where the critique and the evaluator is going to come in.
Right.
Was it an effective argument?
When you
So
can
can you
even
do something just really low stakes just to get them started?
draft them to their side, to
Ooh.
pull in the
Yeah,
Vietnam
you have
drafting.
to.
You have to, or you don't get a choice. You don't get to pick your friends, you are drafted, and it doesn't matter if you agree or not, and then pull in the terms like rebuttal, counter argument, and all of that.
Because we're running low on time, two things that might just be helpful. I want to touch back really fast on the research stuff that we were talking about. I made this, it's in my drive for some research next week that I'm gonna have my kids get started on. I'm gonna print maps of Vietnam and the US on posters. Each group will have their kind of like guided research, and then I'm gonna have them do their little gallery walk kind of thing of like all of these different areas that are significant. I took from the book and then also just like general significance to the war. But each group will get like their own location. They'll have to identify like the terrain and the conditions, who was involved, political figures, their thoughts on the war, all the things with some focus. That's kind of my practice right now for research. I know it could definitely be better. This was just my, like, I definitely want to continue research before the quarter of nonfiction is over.
Right.
And then I found this, I made this last year for 4 corners, so kind of what Roz was just saying of going to either side. Now Carly, you like pushed it and made it so much better of saying you have to go to one side or the other. But I did this for claim practice, and this was really helpful, where I would put a statement up on the board. They would go to strongly agree, I agree, disagree, strongly disagree. And there with their groups, they had to create a claim. And then their task after the fact was to choose one of those claims and to expand. And they worked on that for about a week. So it was like, that day they came up with their claim, then they came up with their reasoning, then they came back a week or a couple days later, we did counterclaim, they added their counterclaim, and they kind of built an essay as we went through, just like, 5 minutes a day for 3 or 4 class periods. And then they had their own model essay by the time we got to the end of this, which was helpful because they had already done each little chunk. So that's also something, you saying the this or that reminded me of that. And that had been helpful in the past. Okay, well, I don't want to hold us any longer because we have already gone over, and I hate when that happens, and it was really bad. Wait, where's my?
I want to say that there is a lot of value in that first thing that you put up. The other thing, for lack of a better word, is more complicated, but I like, and but also useful.
Yeah.
Other pre-assessment, but I think you could quickly gauge, maybe that could just be as a class first and then do the other, I don't know.
Yeah.
But visually, I think they could talk about it a lot quicker than annotating, figuring all that out. But
Right.
they still need to, but I
Right.
mean, this is a good way to say, help them understand they do know what they're talking about, just by looking at a picture of the propaganda or whatever they
Right.
put up. But then do it in the text next or something.
Yeah.
And could you guys use AI maybe to leverage getting feedback? Like if they were to do something like this with Snorkel,
Right.
and then it's just you're just looking at a snapshot
Right.
of how they did the first time, that might give you some feedback on the writing.
That's
Good
true.
idea.
Pretty quick.
Yeah.
You
I
can
don't know
put
if you
images
can or
in
not
Snorkel.
on that.
What do you mean?
Use AI for it.
Oh, no, Snorkel is a program that then AI grades it. You don't grade it
No, you
for the
would take a grade
grade
on
book,
it,
but it grades it
It
to
gives
give you
feedback.
feedback.
And we can.
Yeah, and you can put images, so if you used propaganda from this time period, they look at that and then they just orally or written response, and then it gives them immediate feedback.
I can't keep it all straight. Of like,
Um,
because I know at some point in time it said, do not put kids writing in any AI.
That one's a school one. That's like a school platform though. That's not like ChatGPT,
Yeah.
right? That's my understanding of that.
Yeah,
So
it's
you
their
can-
writing, and it uses AI to give them feedback. Yeah.
Yeah. I get that.
So
Okay.
when will we calendar for quarter two? When do you think?
I was hoping to today.
I know. I
Um,
saw it on
Well,
your
I
know.
think we have more work to do than I thought, though, in figuring out the step by step.
so this is where I am bad because I will just do it and I don't want to just do it. Like I do want us to do it together. So I think, yeah, like I think the significance of what we have to do as a team is there. And that decision of like, what do we collectively want from this unit? Cause I could tell you what I want to do for this unit, but I
Well,
don't think that.
let's just go with that for a second. Like, is it going to be, I actually don't know if we already said this or not, like, 2 papers? Did we just say that?
I don't, no, no,
Let's avoid that.
hard no.
Well, but I mean, how are we going to evaluate their ability to do a rhetorical
We have
analysis?
a lot of options on there. You just have to sift through the ones that are on there.
Okay.
Hailey, do you have any action steps that team members can do before your next CTM and bring that information back?
So I would love if we could decide on the pre-assessment. Do we wanna do something multiple choice? Do we wanna do the written piece and do snorkel? Or even just, like you said, I kinda like how you said, do it as a class. Like, I think
Yeah,
that's a great idea of just give each group the same thing. They get 5 minutes with those questions and we type it up together. I don't think that's a horrible idea. That would give us more time to do something multiple choice and get actual data. Cause I do have on our sad little calendar, like in our CTM of when we're gonna talk about pre-assessment data so we can move forward, from there.
Do you mind if I just type in the notes
No,
just to capture
no.
your thoughts?
Please do. And then I will go insane if we don't have major grade ideas.
So everybody needs
much
to look
longer.
through
Yeah.
the
So
summative ideas.
I'm gonna send, or let's just do it. I'll make a section on our agenda if we could do it on our agenda. If we could all take a look at those majors, what would we want to do for rhetorical analysis? What would we like to do for argumentative? And then that takes that looking at 16 million options down to we all like this one, let's make that work. And we're between these two, let's make something happen there. I think that would help me a lot to like continue to move us forward, if that sounds okay with y'all.
So you want each team member to come back with their top 2?
That sounds great.
Are you against like a timed writing for a rhetorical analysis? I don't have a lot more ideas for rhetorical analysis other than writing.
I have a hard time with timed writes just because with
Paper,
EB, sped,
Yep.
there's so like that there ends up being so much work on the back end for us.
Okay.
Not to say that they aren't valuable. I just think that that's difficult
Okay.
to do. So
Just
no,
just for clarification, come back with 2 choices for major grade. Do you want that to be one
one
written,
for rhetoric.
one performance, or
That
just
would be
one for
great.
just
Is Socratic anywhere on here? I didn't see it.
It's not, but there definitely could be.
It's not on there.
I'll just make a new row. It won't have any fancy links.
No, it's not there.
so one analysis, one performance?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I think that'd be great. Well, y'all, I'm sorry we went over time, but I appreciate your help. I will get very much in the weeds on things when I look at it by myself. And again, I will just do it and I don't want to just do that and like dictate what's happening. Like I said, I'll continue to have as many resources and things available for the novel itself. Activity, assignment, vocab, comprehension related things. But yeah, I need you guys to help me. That's not saying you're not. I'm just saying if I don't say out loud, I will just do it and I don't want to.
Do you want for an action item just to bring back ideas for mini lessons, independent practice,
I think you
just
could always be adding to that.
brainstorm?